alhamdulillah, it is my distinct honor and pleasure to be speaking to my brothers and sisters. This is my first trip to Bangladesh, and when they said I'm going to Dhaka, I said no, I must also come to Sylhet. How can I visit Bangladesh and not come to the land of Shah Jalal?
Wow.
So I insisted that there cannot be a trip to Bangladesh without me coming to my brothers and sisters in Sylhet. And so alhamdulillah, I am here visiting for the first time the land of awliya, the land of saints, the land where Islam began in this great province of Bangladesh. And it is my distinct honor and pleasure not only to be visiting this land and to interact with all of you, but to speak about a topic that is very near and dear to me and to all of us, and that is the seerah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And my talk today will be about deriving practical lessons of benefit from the seerah. How can we learn from the seerah in our daily life? And there are many ways to understand and to dissect the seerah in a practical manner. But today's talk is a very specific question, and that is, what can the seerah teach us about how to deal with the troubles of life, the worries of life, the stress of life? Life is difficult. Our lives are full of problems. What is the Bengali word for problems? In Urdu we call parishani. What is Bengali word? Shamasha. Shamasha. Okay. Life is full of shamasha. Okay? Isn't that true? Lots of shamasha. Shamasha from money. Shamasha from politics. Shamasha from spouse, right?
Yes.
That was a bit too hard of a laugh from the brothers. Shamasha from children. Whenever you see, there is always shamasha, right? Question: how did the Prophet ﷺ deal with stress in his own lifetime? His stress was much more than ours, much bigger than ours. His problems were much bigger than ours. How did he navigate through the problems of his life? From that, let us extract so that we can navigate the problems of our life. That is the topic. Is that clear? Now obviously this is a very long topic. Our time is limited. So because of this, I will jump straight in and explain some very specific points so that inshallah ta'ala we can be equipped. We can better live our lives in spite of all the shamosha, in spite of all the problems. We will navigate through. We will maneuver through. Because the Prophet ﷺ is our role model. He is our leader. He is our teacher. So looking at him, we will navigate through the problems of life, inshaAllah ta'ala. We begin by setting up the stage. How do we set up the stage? The question arises, why is there so much trouble in life? Why is there shamosha? Why? Why are there so many problems, grievances? Even if life is somewhat good, we still have something we're worried about. Something happens that we're anxious about. And subhanAllah, we are so weak, brothers and sisters. We are so weak that no matter what our situation, something is troubling us. And the irony, the same thing. Those who have it are worried. Those who don't have it are worried. The classic example is money. Those who don't have money, the number one cause of stress, I don't have money. I need to get money. Let me get more money. But, and I know you don't believe this, but talk to anybody who has money. Those who are wealthy, the number one cause of stress is to protect their wealth. In fact, to be brutally honest, those who have money are actually more worried than those who don't have money. The level of stress they have is much more. And that's why, if you look at what happens in depression, in suicide, it's always in the highest level of people. It's the socioeconomic status. So if you don't have money, you are worried. And if you have money, you are anxious and worried. Those whom Allah has blessed with children, one of the biggest problems of life is managing children. You see this white hair? I had to go through 4 teenagers, subhanAllah. That gave me the white hair. And those who don't have children, their Worried, they're anxious because they don't have children. They're trying to have children. Doesn't matter what your situation. Those of you that are single wanting to get married, you're worried, I'm not married, I want to get married. Those of you who are married, well, khair, alhamdulillah, let us all look over that aspect, inshallah. Allah bless us with all married. Good marriage. My point is, what am I trying to say? Listen to this carefully, brothers and sisters. Let nobody think, let nobody assume that only my life is bad and everybody else is living stress-free. Listen to me carefully. Every person in this audience, that includes me, we have issues that give us anxiety, issues that cause us stress, issues that we toss and turn at night worried about. How am I going to solve? What am I going to do? Every one of us, we have in our heart anxiety and grief and worry. This is the reality of life. No human being exists without stress. And understand this point. Do not be fooled by social media, by Hollywood or Bollywood movies, by Instagram accounts of famous people who pretend their lives are like a fairy tale. They'll take a 5-minute clip and post it online, and you will see, oh, look at these people. They're living such a beautiful life. You do not know the reality. It is fake. It is illusion. The same people that pretend to live the best lives, they have the highest divorce rates. They have the highest suicide rates. They have the highest rates of depression, the highest rates of therapy. It's just fake. Nobody in this whole dunya exists except that there is worry in their hearts, difficulty in their brain, anxiety throughout their entire lives. This is the reality of life. Now, I'm not saying the level of difficulty is the same. No doubt, our brothers and sisters in Gaza, what is happening to them is a whole different level. I'm not saying it's the same. They never said that. I'm saying it exists. I'm saying you will never live a life that is completely stress-free in this world. This world is not meant to be stress-free. That world is the akhirah ahead of you. It's not this world. Stress-free, that is the next world. And that is why one of the names of Jannah, in fact the primary name of Jannah is Darus Salam. Wallahu yad'u ila Daris Salam. Lahum Darus Salami inda Rabbihim. What does Darus Salam mean? Darus Salam means the abode or the place of no worry. Allah calls Jannah the place of no worry. That is where there is no stress, not over here. If this world were the place of no stress, this world would be Darus Salam. This world is not Darus Salam. What you want, no shamosha, no parishani, no stress, that is in the next life. So then, why is there stress in this life? Understand, Allah has told us, Allah has explained to us. Read the Quran. تبارك الذي بيده الملك وهو على كل شيء قدير الذي خلق الموت والحياة. Why? ليبلوكم أيكم أحسن عملا. He created death and life to test you, to see whose deeds are the best. ألف لام ميم أحسب الناس أن يتركوا أن يقولوا آمنا وهم لا يفتنون ولقد فتنا الذين من قبلهم فليعلمن الله الذين صدقوا وليعلمن الكاذبين. Did man think that we created them for no reason? Did man think all we wanted was to say we believe and they will not be tested? No, we tested the people before you and we will test you as well. And through tests, Allah will see, Allah will test and verify who is speaking the truth when they say we believe and who is lying when they say we believe and they do not believe. It's very clear in the Quran that tests are meant to separate the pious from the fake, from the fraud. Tests are meant to separate the muttaqi from the one who has no taqwa. So there is a wisdom in tests. And in fact, we actually believe that when Allah loves somebody, He in fact increases the tests on them. And this is a misunderstanding that so many people amongst us have. So many people, when a calamity happens, a tragedy happens, when a disaster happens, and may Allah protect all of us, sometimes we face disasters. A loved one dies, a child dies, a parent dies, we're in a car accident, we lose a job. When stress happens, Shaitan comes and says, this is Allah's adhab on you. Allah hates you. You're a bad person. You have done something that brings Allah's anger on you. You're a failure. You're a loser. This is Allah's anger. And I say to you, no, wallahi, that idea is a waswasa of shaitan. Muslims should not think bad thoughts of Allah. A Muslim has good thoughts of Allah. We always have positive thoughts of Allah. We do not think Allah's angry, Allah's punishing. We think Allah Azza wa Jal wants to cleanse and raise me. Allah wants to purify me. Allah wants to give me ajr. We have positive thoughts of Allah, not negative thoughts of Allah Jalla Jalaluhu. And in fact, we learn from the seerah. Look at the seerah. If your blessings in this world were an indication that Allah loves you, this means the more Allah loves you, the more blessed you are in this world, then the Prophet ﷺ should have been born in a multi-billionaire family. He should have lived in a palace. He should have had billions of followers in his lifetime. He should have been treated like a king. But what is the reality of his life? He was born in poverty. He was orphaned from birth. He lost his mother at 6. He lost his grandfather at 8. Thrice orphaned. He was raised by an uncle with 10 children in the room. One room, 10 children. No mother, no father. No money. He was raised in abject poverty. And when he began preaching, his own people rejected him, pushed him, spat on him, threw dead animals on him, exiled him, tried to assassinate him 5 times. He had to flee to Medina. They didn't leave him alone. They attacked him in Badr, in Uhud, in Khandaq. They physically threw javelin, spear, arrow at him. He was bleeding from his forehead. They tried to kill him multiple times. He went to Taif. They stoned him. Psychologists say the biggest pain that a human can feel, the most difficult pain that a human can feel, is the loss of a child. When the child is lost, how the parents feel. Those of you that have lost a child, I ask Allah to reward you, to give you sabr, and to reunite you with your child in Firdaus al-A'la. Those that have not lost a child, may Allah protect us and our children from having to face that tragedy. They say the most painful tragedy is losing a child. Our Prophet ﷺ was blessed with 7 children. 6 of them he buried with his own hands in his lifetime. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 children in his own lifetime. Who told you that if Allah loves you, you will have a good life? Where did you get this from? Have you not read the seerah? Have you not studied the life of the Prophet ﷺ? He was the most beloved, and yet his life was so difficult. What does this show you? Difficulty of life, ease of life, is not an indication that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves you. In fact, this world, Allah gives to those whom He loves and those whom He hates. And this world, Allah deprives from those whom He loves and those whom He hates. This world doesn't mean anything. Those who are beloved, some of them are wealthy and powerful. And those who are despised by Allah, some of them are wealthy and powerful. And this world, some of the awliya of Allah have nothing. And some of the worst people also have nothing. In other words, this dunya means nothing to Allah in the status of Allah. Whether you have it, whether you don't, it means nothing. It is the akhirah. It is maghfirah. It is jannah. That is how your maqam is decided in the eyes of Allah. And those who have this dunya, they are being tested because they have the dunya. Those who don't have the dunya, they're being tested because they don't have the dunya. It's different tests, but all of it is a test. Do you understand this point? It's different tests, but all of it is a test. No blessing of this dunya is an inherent blessing. It might make life easier in some manners, but it makes the test more difficult in other manners. The whole world, Allah says in the Quran, وَنَبْلُوكُمْ بِالشَّرِّ وَالْخَيْرِ فِتْنَةً. We're going to test you with the good and with the bad. all of it is a fitna. The whole dunya is a fitna. What you have is a test, and what you don't have is a test. So do not judge your status in the eyes of Allah by what you have and what you don't have. It means nothing. Your status is decided by what you do with what you have and how you deal with what you do not have. Your tests are different, but all of us are being tested by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And in fact, for the believer, we find comfort, we find solace that those who are beloved to Allah are actually tested more because they are beloved. Our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, Inna Allah ta'ala إِذَا أَحَبَّ قَوْمًا ابْتَلَاهُمْ. If Allah loves somebody, He increases the tests on them. Allah increases the test. Why? Because tests bring about extra reward, extra ajr. Allah rewards those who are patient بِغَيْرِ حِسَابٍ. إِنَّمَا يُوَفَّى الصَّابِرُونَ أَجْرَهُمْ بِغَيْرِ حِسَابٍ. Allah will reward the sabirun without counting how much they are getting. So when you are tested, do not think this is Allah's adab. Rather think this is Allah's means of raising my rank and an opportunity to get ajr from Allah. Our Prophet ﷺ told us that on the Day of Judgment, only two people, only two categories will be given the keys to Jannah, and they will negotiate or try to negotiate with Allah. Ya Allah, take the key back and send me back to the dunya and give me another chance. Otherwise, everybody else who's given their apartment key, their lot in Jannah, everybody who gets their key in Jannah, they're gonna run, race, let me get there. Only two people will try to say, Ya Allah, take it back and send me. The first category, you all know, who is that? The shaheed. The first category, the shaheed. When they see how much Allah has given them, they will say, Ya Allah, send me back to the dunya and take my life again, and send me back again and take my life again. 10 times send me back so that I can get 10 times the ajr that I'm seeing. They want to go back to the dunya. And who's the second category? The Prophet ﷺ said, the one who was tested with a severe calamity, and he or she was patient because of that calamity. Then Allah will reward them. And when they see the reward, they will say, Ya Allah, send me back to the dunya and increase the test so that I can increase your reward. So when you understand that the purpose of a tragedy, of calamity, the purpose of any type of grief, it is not adab. It is the potential for Allah's thawab. When you understand this, the whole philosophy of life changes. You will find comfort and solace that what is happening, inshallah, I will see the result. I will see the good news. I will get Allah's ajr because of what is happening. You find sanity in the insanity of this world. You find patience in an otherwise chaotic world. No problem happens to you. Our Prophet ﷺ said, hadith is in Bukhari and Muslim, never is a servant of Allah afflicted with worry, with grief, with pain, physical pain, or with fear, except that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will reward him for that worry and fear. The emotion of worry, if you are patient, Allah will reward you. The mere existence of fear in your brain, you're scared about something, but you find comfort in Allah. In the emotion of fear and turning to Allah, there will be ajr for you. Simply having sabr will bring about the ajr of Allah. So understand, all of the problems of this dunya, they are meant to test and to show we have sabr or not. Now, if we understand this, now we get to another question. And this is a difficult question. Think about it. When the Prophet ﷺ said, the more Allah loves you, the more He tests you. And when we understand, the more tests, the more potential for a high ajr and a high level in Jannah. The question is, should we then want from Allah more difficulties to come down? No. Why are you saying no? I'm just asking you. When more difficulties means more potential for reward. There seems to be a contradiction. One brother says yes. Brother, you want your life to be more difficult. All of a sudden you go quiet. There seems to be a contradiction, but there isn't if you understand one point. You see, seems to be contradiction. If more stress translates into more ajr, and if more difficulty translates into more thawab from Allah, why don't we want more difficulties in life? I will explain to you why. The Prophet ﷺ clearly told us we don't want difficulties. When his uncle Al-Abbas came to him and said, "Oh my nephew, teach me a special dua that I'll be the first to learn from you." And he thought it would be a very exotic dua, very long dua, very complicated dua. The Prophet ﷺ said one word to him. He said, "Oh my uncle, ask Allah for al-afiyah," one word. And al-afiyah means to not be tested. Ask Allah for a simple life, don't be tested. Al-Abbas said, "Oh my nephew, I wanted something important, something exotic. Like, this seems too simple. That's all, one word." And the Prophet ﷺ said, "Ya Am, oh my uncle, ask Allah for al-afiyah, for a servant is not blessed with anything better than afiyah." If you are not tested with a severe test, that is a blessing for you. If life is simple, if life is monotonous, if life has a routine, if life gets boring, thank Allah that life is routine. I can assure you, our brothers and sisters in Gaza do not have a routine life. If your life is systematic and routine, then wallahi you are in afiyah. And it is a blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the Prophet is telling his uncle, ask Allah for afiyah. And the Quran tells us, رَبَّنَا آتِنَا فِي الدُّنْيَا حَسَنًا وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ حَسَنًا. I want a good life and I want a good akhirah. So the Quran and Sunnah clearly are telling us, we don't want a difficult life. Yet we are told, if we have a difficult life, the potential for reward is more. How do we reconcile? There seems to be a contradiction. Guys, are you understanding me? Yes. Everybody understanding? Yes. Okay, if my accent is difficult, then I don't know what to do. That's my English, I don't know. But I'll try to come down and, I don't know, speak differently to tell me. But you seem quiet audience. In America, there's more interaction. That's why. People in Select are very reserved. Is that how it is? No? You can interact with me, no problem, inshallah. Bismillah. So, what is the response to this potential clash? Here is the response. Before the test comes down, you do not know if you will pass or fail. So you would rather not be tested. Because what if you fail? But once the test comes down, Allah has chosen you for the test. And Allah's choosing is not your choosing. And Allah's selection is not your selection. And if Allah has chosen you, and if Allah has selected you, then this means that Allah has stamped that you can pass the test. How do we know this? Because Allah has guaranteed in the Quran, لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا وسعها ربنا لا تحملنا ما لا طاقة لنا به. Nobody will be tested with a test that is more than they can bear and pass. If you are being tested with any test, then know that Allah has guaranteed you have the capability to pass it. You might doubt yourself. Allah does not doubt you. Allah has confidence in you. Allah knows you can pass that test. Now before the test comes down, you cannot say, give me the test, because you don't know if you can pass or not. So you would rather, Ya Allah, pass over the test. I'd rather not be tested. But once Allah has chosen you, that is Allah's indication that Allah has selected you. Allah has chosen you. You know the example that some of our scholars give? It's like before a battle. When the general, when the warrior, he looks at all the crowd. He goes, okay, who am I going to choose to begin the battle with? Before anybody is chosen, you're like, you know what? I'd rather not be the one chosen. But once the king says, you, what does this mean? It means he has trusted you. You have the honor about all the people. You are the one the king has chosen. You are the general that has been chosen. You are the one I trust to be able to defeat the enemy. Similarly, when it comes to this dunya, sometimes Allah chooses a person not because of adab, but because Allah wants to lift up that person. Allah wants to bless that person. You know, brothers and sisters, fact of the matter is, sometimes life becomes so good that our hearts become hard. We become ghafla. We are not fully spiritual. And Allah knows that we are better than this. But we're not acting better than this. We're acting as if we're failing. But Allah knows our hearts are better than this. So what does Allah do? He brings down a little bit of difficulty. And because of that difficulty, subhanallah, we rediscover Islam. We rediscover salah. We rediscover the pleasure of the Quran. We rediscover the ladha of dua, of salah, of all of these rituals. And in the process, we form a strong ta'alluq, connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Any calamity that brings you closer to Allah is no calamity. It is a gift Allah gifted you with. Any musibah that brings you closer to Allah is not a musibah. It is a ni'mah, a blessing to you. Because nothing is more precious than a relationship with Allah. And so if you form that relationship, then whatever was taken away, it is Allah's gift to you to show you that He wanted you close to Him. Question though, isn't it true that sometimes a calamity is adab for some people? Response, yes it is. Yes, wallahi it is. Sometimes being tested is adab. It is Allah's anger. It is punishment. How do we know the difference? Firstly, the Muslim should never think this about himself. As we said, a Muslim always have good thoughts of Allah. The muttaqi, the muhsin, he should have good thoughts of Allah. He should always think that Allah Azza wa Jal is blessing me, not punishing me. Secondly, here's the response. How do we know when something is a test versus something is a blessing? How do we know when something is adab versus something is a blessing in disguise? Response. It is not in what happens to us. It is in the response of what happens to us. The same calamity in one person is a punishment, it's anger. And in another person, it is a blessing. The calamity does not indicate Allah's adab or Allah's rahmah. It is your response to the calamity that indicates. Is that clear? If the response to the calamity is humbling yourself to Allah, understanding, I need to come closer to Allah, increasing your dua, your dhikr, your Quran, your salah, then without a doubt, that was not a calamity. It was a gift to you to bring you closer to Allah. Allah loved you. You were going far away. Allah called you back. And anything that brings you close to Allah, it is Allah's blessing to you. However, if the tragedy causes you, astaghfirullah, to become arrogant, to turn your back and walk away, then yes, this is adab. The classic example, our father Adam and our enemy Iblis. The both of them were kicked out of Jannah. Correct? Yes. The one is a prophet and a role model, and the other is the worst of humanity. Why? Because the one of them understood, I made a mistake, and it made him more righteous and pious. رَبَّنَا ظَلَمْنَا أَنفُسَنَا وَإِن لَمْ تَغْفِرْ لَنَا وَتَرْحَمْنَا لَنُكُونَنَّ مِنَ الْخَاسِرِينَ. The one of them understood, I messed up and I need to go back to Allah. And because our father went back to Allah, he becomes Allah's chosen, Allah's creation, that is Mustafa, that is the father of our Prophet ﷺ, the father of all of mankind. And the other one, what happened to Iblis? Aba wastakbara wa kana min al-kafirin. He became arrogant. Okay, I don't need this. Okay, go. And he turned his back and he walked away and he became mal'oon. He became ghadab and rajam. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. He is rajim, stoned by Allah, thrown out of Allah's mercy. Both of them committed a sin. Both of them disobeyed. Both of them were kicked out of Jannah. The difference was not in what happened. The difference is in the reaction to what happened. And it is now up to you, when a calamity happens, do you want to follow our father Adam? Or do you want to follow our enemy Iblis? If you follow our father Adam, then you're on the path of Adam. You're on the path of piety. You're on the path of taqwa. And if you follow Iblis, you're on the path of Iblis. So understand this point. It is not the calamity that dictates whether it is adab or rahmah. It is your response to the calamity. The same calamity can be adab for one person and rahmah for another. So, once we understand this point, now we get to another point. And that is, what is the wisdom, or how do we respond to calamity? What is the goal of calamity? By the way, it is permissible to drink water standing, if there's a need to do so. Authentically narrated in Sunan at-Tirmidhi, that Ali radiallahu anh found some water on the pouch, the leather canister hanging from the wall. So he stood up and he drank from it, and then he sat down and he said, I saw the Prophet ﷺ do this. It is, if you're normal sitting down, you may sit down. Otherwise, you do not have to sit down when you're walking to drink water. It is something that is permissible in the Sharia. So, just to clarify, because sometimes people ask this question. So the question arises, what is the goal of being tested? What should be done when it comes to being tested? How do we respond to tests? The response. The primary response that Allah wants to see from us is sabr. What is sabr? A lot of people misunderstand what sabr is. Too many people think that sabr means I cannot show sadness. I cannot be hurt in my heart. I cannot cry. If I cry, they think this means I'm not showing sabr. For some people, showing sabr literally means I must be happy at what has happened. And once again, this is completely false. Perhaps some of you have seen or witnessed, or maybe even it happened to you, that a tragedy happens, you lose a loved one, and you're sad, you're crying, and a friend comes, tries to cheer you up, a relative comes, thinks they're saying something good, but they don't say something correct. And they say, Akhi, ukhti, why are you crying? Don't you have sabr? If you have sabr, you wouldn't cry. And you feel, oh my God, she's right or he's right. If I had sabr, I wouldn't be sad. No, this is incorrect. Where did you equate sabr with no sadness? Why did you think sabr means I cannot cry? Haven't you read the seerah? The seerah teaches us that to cry is human. The seerah teaches us to feel worried is human. We are not angels, we are flesh and blood. Even the prophets are flesh and blood. Did not the Prophet ﷺ cry? Go read the seerah. His son Ibrahim, year and a half, born in Medina to Maria al-Qibtiyya. The Prophet ﷺ had Maria and they had a son Ibrahim. And Ibrahim was born with the asthma, breathing problem. But back then they didn't have breathing, mechanisms. They didn't have the canister to calm it down. He didn't have any chance to live. Within a year and a half, and he passed away. And they brought him, Ibrahim, when he was in the last minutes of his life. He was gasping for breath. The hadith literally says he would take a breath and then pause. Take a breath and pause. Like this. Can you imagine a child? How difficult it will be. Your own child. And the child is in the hand of the Prophet ﷺ. He's surrounded by the Sahaba. And Ibrahim is minutes left to live. And that gasp, difficult breathing, the Prophet ﷺ begins to cry. He begins to cry. Tears are coming down his cheeks. One of the Sahaba has the same misunderstanding that some of us in this audience do. And he says, what? You too cry, Ya Rasulullah? In his mind, if you are Nabi, you cannot cry. In his mind, if you have taqwa, if you have sabr, you cannot cry. So he says, you too, Ya Rasulullah, you are crying. Aw tabki ya Rasulullah. And the Prophet taught him and through him all of us the reality. He said, Al-buka'u rahmatun ja'alahu Allah fi qulubi ibadihi. Crying is a sign of Allah's rahmah that He has placed in the hearts of His chosen servants. Far from showing that you don't have sabr, crying shows you have compassion and mercy, and Allah has created your heart upon mercy. In other words, to be changing this around, if you are not crying when your son is dying, something is wrong with you. Your heart has some issue. How can you not cry in this situation and scenario? So who told you that crying means you don't have sabr? Who told you that your heart full of sadness means you don't have tawakkul in Allah? Where did you get this from? Is not the reality of the seerah that there will be pain, there will be suffering? The Prophet physically bled. If somebody cuts you, you're going to bleed. You're a human being. This is the reality of life. And in fact, we even learn from the seerah that the Prophet sobbed because of pain. Sobbing like a child, the hadith says. And this happened, to the best of my knowledge, only once in the seerah. For a worldly reason. Of course, he would cry for the khashya of Allah. That's a separate category of crying. He would cry for the fear of Allah. He would cry for making dua for his ummah. That's a separate category of crying. But crying for the sake of pain in this heart, that is also from the sunnah. It is from being a human being. It is authentically reported that once the Sahaba and the Prophet were returning from a journey. And on the way back from Mecca, the Prophet walked into the desert. He turned away from the path, he walked into the desert. And everybody followed him into the desert. Nobody asked him, where are you going? Why are you stopping? They loved him so much. If he turned left, they turned left. If he turned right, they turned right. Just following him. Ittiba' Rasul. And he kept on going. And nobody says anything. Then he stops the camel. And he dismounts the camel. And everybody stops their camel, dismounts the camel. Then he walks. Everybody walks behind him. And then he sits down. Everybody sits down around him. Then he points to the ground. And he says, هَذَا قَبْرُ أُمِّي آمِنَةً. This is the qabr of my mother Amina. And I asked Allah permission to visit her qabr. And Allah gave me permission to visit her qabr. This is the only time he visited the qabr of Amina. Why? Because Amina was buried in the middle of nowhere. If you know from the seerah, Amina did not die in any city. She was on a journey, and on the way back, she passed away, she fell sick, and the Prophet was 6 years old, and so Ayman took him back to Mecca, but Amina died in the middle of the road. She was buried in the middle of nowhere. To this day, her qabr is in we know where it is, but there's no village around it. It's just a grave there in the middle of the desert. So this is the only time the Prophet visited the grave of his mother Amina. And as he sat there in front of the grave, all of the memories of Amina came back to him. And he was 6 years old. He has memories of Amina. All of the memories of Amina came back to him. And as he sat there, the tears began flowing from his face until his beard became wet. And those tears continued until he began to sob. And he covered his hands, sobbing because of the memories of his mother Amina. And as the Sahaba saw this, and they had never seen him cry to this level, his pain became their pain. And his tears became their tears. And his sobbing became their sobbing. And they began to cry, and they began to sob. 500 grown men crying because they see the Prophet ﷺ crying. Can anybody come and say, why are they crying? Don't they have sabr? La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. How can you not cry when you think of your mother who has passed away? Wallahi, how can you not cry? So where did you understand that sabr means I cannot show any emotion? In fact, have you not read the Quran? What happened to Yaqub when he didn't have his son? What happened to him? He became blind because of crying. Is anybody going to accuse Yaqub, the prophet, of not having sabr? So then, if sabr has nothing to do with emotion, which is the truth, if sabr has nothing to do with crying and pain, which is the truth, then what is sabr? Sabr means, and listen to this carefully because perhaps many of you or some of you haven't heard of this definition, but it is what clarifies the reality of sabr. Sabr has nothing to do with the outer tears or the pain of the heart. Nothing. Has nothing to do with that. You can cry till you go blind and you still have sabr. So what is sabr? Sabr means it's an internal process. It's an internal jihad. It happens up here and in the qalb, not out here. Sabr means you link your tragedy, you link your pain to the expectation of Allah's reward in the akhirah. This is what sabr is. You take the grief, the anger, the hurt, the anxiety, you take all of that and you remind yourself, Allah will reward me for all that is happening. And because you are reminded, you're able to control your tongue in saying something wrong and control your thoughts for thinking something un-Islamic. That is what sabr is. That's it. What is saying something that is wrong? Saying something that is wrong would be something that is un-Islamic. Thoughts and tongue that is un-Islamic. For example, why is this happening to me? It's not fair. That has no sabr. Astaghfirullah, you're accusing Allah of being unfair. To challenge the wisdom of Allah, that is where you have crossed the line. And you are demonstrating you do not have sabr. But as long as you accept, you don't have to understand. You do not have to understand. Nobody is saying you have to understand why you lost a loved one. You have to understand why you had a financial crisis. You do not have to understand, but you must accept Allah's qadr. And you will accept it when you link your sabr to Allah's reward. Once you do this, now life becomes manageable because there's light at the end of the tunnel. You understand what is happening for a wisdom. Now question, how do you then attain sabr? How do you attain sabr? Response to this, sabr is attained in multiple ways. Of the ways you attain sabr is by constantly doing the rituals on time. وَأْمُرْ أَهْلَكَ بِالصَّلَاةِ وَاصْطَبِرْ عَلَيْهَا. Sabr and salah are linked together. And the Prophet ﷺ said, fasting is half of sabr. So siyam and sabr are linked together. So fasting and salah train you to have sabr. Ramadan is coming up, and one of the names of Ramadan is Shahrul Sabr. In one hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said that Ramadan is the month of sabr. So Ramadan, the siyam, the Quran, these are all training grounds for sabr. However, there is another way to get sabr as well. And that way is a very beautiful way. And it's actually an easy way. But many people don't know it. I will teach it to you if you do not know. Our Prophet ﷺ said, hadith is in Sahih Bukhari. Our Prophet ﷺ said, وَمَنْ يَتَصَبَّرْ يُصَبِّرْهُ اللَّهُ. Whoever desires to have sabr, Allah will gift him sabr. Imagine if there was a hadith, whoever desires $1 million, Allah will give him $1 million. Do you think anybody in this audience would not have $1 million? What if I were to tell you that having sabr, wallahi, is more precious to you than $1 million? Because sabr will make the quality of your life better, whereas $1 million will probably corrupt you and I and make the quality of your life worse in the akhirah. Sabr is more precious than $1 million, and it is for free. If you want sabr, all you have to do is desire it and ask Allah, and you will get it. You want more? Ask and you will get. You need even more? Ask and you will get. Sabr is gifted for free. All that is required is you desiring to have it. Of the names of Allah is As-Sabur. And As-Sabur means the one who gives sabr. So when you desire sabr, when you're facing a calamity, do not ever say to yourself, I cannot handle this, it's too much, I don't have sabr. Because when you say, I don't have sabr, what does it actually mean now that you've heard this hadith? I don't have an expectation. Okay, what else? Allah is not giving you sabr. Why is Allah not giving you sabr? Because you're not asking for it. When you say, I don't have sabr, you're actually saying, I don't even want to ask you, oh Allah, to give me sabr. Because if you ask Allah to give you sabr, what do we learn? Allah will give you sabr. So nobody should say, I don't have sabr for this. You have whatever sabr you need. However much you need, Allah will give you that amount. All you have to do is genuinely desire. And say, oh Allah, I need sabr. Oh Allah, give me sabr. And the more sabr you need, the more Allah will give you. And once you have sabr, then wait for Allah's reward and patience. Allah will give you more than He has taken away. Now, question arises, and with these points, inshallah, we'll conclude and open the floor for Q&A. I want to give some time for Q&A as well, inshallah, with the audience. Question arises, what do we learn from the seerah about specific actions the Prophet ﷺ would do to find comfort during times of difficulty? When life is difficult, when life is full of stress, what are the de-stressing techniques from the seerah? And because of time, I'll only list 4 or 5 of them. Otherwise, obviously this lecture I've given much longer seminars and much more detail, but this is just a summary of a much more longer topic. Number one is dhikr of Allah. And especially the dhikr of Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. In fact, the Quran tells us, الَّذِينَ إِذَا أَصَابَتْهُمْ مُصِيبَةٌ قَالُوا إِنَّا لِلَّهِ وَإِنَّا إِلَيْهِ رَاجِعُونَ. Next time a calamity happens, next time a tragedy comes into your life, go back whenever it happens, go back and rewind your memory. See, how long did it take from getting the news of the calamity to you saying, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un? There's going to be a gap. There's going to be a gap. Listen to me carefully. The stronger your iman, the smaller the gap. The weaker your iman, the longer the gap. You want to know how strong your iman is? Rewind the memory tape in your head and see how long did it take you to remember Allah after you heard of a tragedy. Days, hours, minutes. Look at the seerah. Ibrahim, the baby, passes away. The minute, rather the second, the Malakul Maut takes his ruh, the Prophet ﷺ looks up and says, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Zero lag between what he said and the tragedy. The same second that his son passes away, he turns to Allah, he thinks of Allah. This is what sabr is. And the longer you take, this is the reality, the weaker our iman. So, number one, when tragedy happens, turn to Allah and say, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. What does this phrase mean? Inna lillah. All of us belong to Allah. So whatever has been taken away from me, it wasn't mine. It was Allah's. And Allah has the right to take it back. Allah created this loved one that has been taken away. My loved one passed away, my mother, my son, my daughter, my brother, my friend passed away. I have to remind myself, I didn't create that person. Allah is the creator. I'm not the Malik, Allah is the Malik. I'm not the Rabb, Allah is the Rabb. So if Allah is the Rabb, Allah has the right to take back what He created. It's not mine, it is Allah's. So we remind us of Inna Lillah. But then we bring some comfort as well. Whatever Allah took away, Allah is going back to Allah. Wa inna ilayhi raji'un. And I too will go back to Allah. So I will be reunited. It's not a permanent loss. It is not a permanent separation. Whatever has been taken away. If it's a person, inshallah, you'll be reunited with that person in the akhirah. And if it is something else, health or wealth or whatever, Allah will give you better in the akhirah than what has been taken away. So, وَإِنَّا إِلَيْهِ رَاجِعُونَ, it brings us comfort that there's something to look forward to. Inna lillah, it makes us submissive and humble, not arrogant. It's not mine. وَإِنَّا إِلَيْهِ رَاجِعُونَ, it brings us optimism. I have something to look forward to. So this is number one, dhikr of Allah. Number two, and it is also a type of dhikr, but it's a different type, tilawat al-Quran. وَنُنَزِّلُ مِنَ الْقُرْآنِ مَا هُوَ شِفَاءٌ لِمَا فِي الصُّدُورِ. Shifa. The Quran is a shifa. The Quran is a cure for the heart. And reciting the Quran brings about peace to the heart. And in the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, authentic hadith, O Allah, make the Quran the spring of my heart, the light of my eyes, and what takes away my worry. جَلَاءَ أَحْزَانِنَا وَذَهَابَ هُمُومِنَا وَهُمُومِنَا. O Allah, make the Quran that which takes my grief and my anxiety away. So tilawatul Quran brings comfort to the heart. This is number two. Number three, salah. وَاسْتَعِينُوا بِالصَّبْرِ وَالصَّلَاةِ. Seek the help of Allah during times of tragedy with sabr. I already talked about sabr. وَالصَّلَاةِ. And our mother Aisha radiallahu anha said, anytime something worried the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he would stand up for salah. How different our lives and his life. Many of us, when we are worried, we just log on to social media to numb our minds. When we're worried, we turn on the television, want to change our minds. No. The mu'min turns to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and finds comfort in salah. And take this advice from me and try it yourselves. Next time something is worrying you, do wudu, stand up to pray, and especially when you go into sajda, just stop there for a while. Just do an extra long sajda, 10, 20, 30, 40 seconds, a minute. Just stay there and say, Subhana Rabbi al-A'la, Subhana Rabbi al-A'la, Subhana Rabbi al-A'la. Just feel the sweetness of prostrating and sajda to Allah. I swear to you, when you lift your head, I'm not saying your worry will go away, but I am saying the weight of the burden will be a little bit less. Just a little bit less. And every time you do sajda, that burden will be just a little bit less. You will find the sweetness of salah and the comfort that salah brings to you, and your worries will gently, slowly be lifted. I'm not saying they're going to go away, but you will find comfort in salah. Allah is telling you, وَاسْتَعِينُوا بِالصَّبْرِ وَالصَّلَاةِ. So this is number what? 3. Some of you are taking notes, but most of you, it looks like, have good memories. You will memorize, mashallah. No problem, inshallah. Take the notes from those that are taking the notes. So number 4. So we said dhikr, we said Quran, we said salah. Number 4, dua. Dua is the weapon of the believer. Dua is the primary mechanism of how you communicate with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Dua is the direct channel between you and Allah. During times of difficulty, during times of stress, when life becomes very, very sour, raise your hands to Allah and beg Allah and plead to Allah and ask Allah to make that issue easy for you. Dua is direct call between you and Allah. And you will feel comfort because of that phone call. It is a direct call. Direct. Allah hears you. وَإِذَا سَلَكَ عِبَادِ عَنِّي فَإِنِّي قَرِيبٌ Mujib. Allah is Qareeb. Allah is Mujib. Allah is Samir. So when you ask Allah, have certainty Allah is hearing you. And Allah is listening to you. And Allah will respond to your dua. Now, much can be said about dua. I have a book about dua. Somebody showed me yesterday. It has been translated into Bangla as well. It is available in Bangla. I don't know the publisher, but it's Dua, the Weapon of the Believer. It's available in English, and it's also available in Bangla as well. And it is a comprehensive book about the etiquettes of dua. And I also have a series of lectures online about the etiquettes of dua. But I just want to make one point over here. All too often, we don't understand the spirit of dua. And we think that what is important is what we say and not how we say it. And we are more worried about the wording than we are worried about our heart. And this is a fundamental problem, the biggest mistake. We are not thinking good thoughts of Allah when we are assuming that what is important is the structure of what I'm saying. And this is wrong. SubhanAllah, I give you a funny anecdote that is very common, unfortunately. That somebody will come to me or any sheikh and say, Sheikh, I have such and such a situation. Teach me a dua I can make for this situation. Thinking that specific dua is what will solve the problem. And one case, I remember, an Auntie G came to me in America. And you know, in America we have a very difficult exam to get into medical school. It's called MCAT exam. Very difficult exam, right? And the MCAT, it has many sections. So Auntie G comes to me and she says, Sheikh Saab, my son has taken MCAT 3 times, he's failed. Organic chemistry, he always fails it. Is there a dua that I can make so that my son passes the organic chemistry and the MCAT dua exam? She thinks that us Imams and Shuyukh, we have a special secret 100-volume book, the du'as of specific situation. And in volume 77, du'as of the mother. Chapter 22, MCAT du'as. Section 16, what to make organic chemistry in the MCAT du'a for the mother. And special secret cryptic code, only I have access to it. I look it up and I write on a chitti, give it to the Auntie Ji. Auntie Ji, this is the du'a. Mashallah, jazakallah. And she goes, Astaghfirullah, astaghfirullah. Do you really think that what you say is what is important? Make dua from your heart. That is what is important. Make dua in your language, because that is the most fluent. What you say from your qalb, this is what Allah is concerned with. Not the verbs, not the nouns, not the structure. And all the scholars have said, the dua can be done in any language. We're not talking about salah, Quran, of course that's Arabic. Dua, any language. You do not have to make dua only in Arabic. You make dua in your mother language, the language that you are fluent in. Make dua from your own qalb. That is the most powerful dua. So we said, number 1 is dhikr, number 2 Quran, number 3 salah, number 4 dua. To conclude, I'll teach you number 5. There's more to be said. Let's teach you number 5. Number 5 is the combination of all 4 together. And it is the most powerful antidote to anxiety and stress. The number 1 mechanism to combat the difficulties of life is to do 1, 2, 3, 4 all together in the best time, the best place, the best manner. And that is Salat al-Tahajjud. Salat al-Tahajjud is dhikr and Quran and salah and dua all combined in one. There is nothing that will bring you more comfort in your difficulties of life than Salat al-Tahajjud. Nothing. There is nothing that will make life easier to battle the stress of life than Salat al-Tahajjud. And our Prophet ﷺ was commanded by Allah to pray tahajjud because his life would get difficult. This is in the second revelation, the second surah that came down. Ya ayyuhal muzammil, قم الليل إلا قليلا نصفه أو انقص منه قليلا أو زد عليه ورتل القرآن ترتيلا إِنَّا سَنُلْقِي عَلَيْكَ قَوْلًا ثَقِيلًا. We're going to give you a heavy burden. You had better pray tahajjud half the night. Notice the linkage. Life will get difficult. Life will not be easy. So make sure you are praying tahajjud. This is the reality of tahajjud. Tahajjud gives you strength. Tahajjud gives you peace. Tahajjud gives you sakina. Tahajjud gives you sabr. Tahajjud gives you iman. Nothing makes your difficulties easier than salat al-tahajjud. And I know tahajjud is difficult. So my advice to myself and all of you, if you cannot pray tahajjud every single night, then schedule it regularly, at least few nights of the month. Once a week, twice a week, once a month, schedule it. Put it into your calendar that this is the day or this is the night regularly I'm going to pray tahajjud. Make some habit, because some tahajjud is better than no tahajjud. And if you can do more, then it is even better than that. And tahajjud is super easy. Half an hour before Fajr, 1 hour before Fajr, 20 minutes before Fajr. Just wake up and go to the corner of the room and pray 2 rak'ah, 4 rak'ah, 6 rak'ah, 8 rak'ah. Doesn't matter, tahajjud is nafil. There's no quantity. You can pray as much and as little as you want. Tahajjud is nafil. So pray as much as little as you want. Just pray in the middle of the night. The last third of the night is the ideal time of tahajjud. The ideal time of tahajjud. Our Prophet ﷺ said, every single night, Allah Himself descends to the lower heavens. And Allah announces to the angels, who is there praying? I shall listen to him. Who is there asking? I shall give him. Who is there making requests? I shall answer his requests. Subhanallah. It is as if Allah is announcing to all of you and me, I have private office hours. If you want, come and I will listen to you. And yet we are sleeping and not having those private hours. If you really want something from Allah, and all of us need, then why are you not knocking when Allah's doors are open? Why are you not asking when Allah is saying, I will give you whatever you want? So wake up in that portion of the night. Struggle to get over your sleepiness and go and do wudu and go to the corner of a house that nobody knows you are there, and just between you and Allah, open up your heart. Do the tilawah of the Quran. Fall into sajda. Make dua to Allah in your own language. Make dua and beg Allah to make that difficulty easy for you. And I guarantee you, you will see the effects of that tahajjud in your daily life. And that's why the Prophet ﷺ never stopped praying tahajjud. Even in his travel, he would never stop praying tahajjud. Tahajjud was his regular routine because Allah commanded him to do so. So, to summarize, and then we open the floor for questions. Understand, O Muslim, that the seerah teaches us that life is not going to be easy. Who told you life is going to be easy? The seerah teaches us that, in fact, as a rule, the more beloved you are to Allah, the more difficult life will be. This is a rule. There are always exceptions, by the way. There's always exceptions. But as a rule, when Allah loves somebody, He tests them. And so if you are tested, do not think it is adab. Think it is Allah's opportunity to raise your ranks. And if you are tested, find comfort that our Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam was tested more than me and you. You're in good company. You're in his company. If you are tested, then people better than you were tested more than you. So find comfort in the seerah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and understand, just like he was tested financially, you are tested financially. He was tested with family, you are tested with family. He was tested with persecution, you are tested with persecution. He was tested at every level, and you are being tested at a much less level than him. So find comfort in that. And then realize there is wisdom in tests. Allah is not testing you just for punishment. No, a'udhu billah. Allah is testing you to cleanse. Allah is testing you to forgive your sin. Allah is testing you to raise your ranks up. This is why you are being tested. Like the Prophet ﷺ was tested to raise him up to the highest level. That is why you are being tested. So find comfort in this and understand the response to the test must be shown by turning to Allah, strengthening your iman, understanding that Allah has a plan. You don't know the plan. You don't understand the plan, but you understand Allah has the plan. Is that clear, right? You don't understand the plan, okay, no problem. But you understand Allah has the plan. And whatever Allah has planned, Alhamdulillah, He is my Mawla. Huwa Mawlana. قُلْ لَنْ يُصِيبَنَا إِلَّا مَا كَتَبَ اللَّهُ لَنَا هُوَ مَوْلَانَا. Nothing will happen to me or you except that Allah has decreed it, and Allah is my Mawla. Whatever my Mawla decides, it is better for me, even if I don't understand that. And then with sabr, you link your pain, your grief, your anxiety, you link it to the rewards of the hereafter. And you expect Allah to reward you. And you try your best to change the situation. But if it doesn't work, you still accept Allah's qadr. And you have full yaqeen that on the day of judgment, you will see the effects and the fruits of your patience. And what Allah will give you is much more than what has been taken away from you. And what Allah will bless you with will make all of the pains and difficulties worth it of your life if you have sabr. And this is what the seerah teaches us. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us of those who understand the seerah of the Prophet and implement it in our daily lives. And with this, inshallah, we open the floor for questions, inshallah.